Hey guys, hope you're well. Just wanted to give you a quick update on the Michigan primary. So, some interesting news all around. First, we'll talk about what I think is kind of the most interesting news that has fallen through the cracks, which is that Marianne Williamson is reigniting her campaign, which I think is a pretty smart idea. In the Michigan primary, where she had been visiting Michigan, but she wasn't technically officially a candidate, even though she was on the ballot, so kind of a weird, convoluted way to campaign, but Marianne noted that she was the only true ceasefire candidate. And I think there was some cowardice shown on a lot of state reps' positions for them to advocate for uncommitted instead of just voting for Marianne Williamson, who was already on the ballot. And that just shows that a lot of these state reps and these people representing the Islamic community aren't being as effective as they actually could be. Because what they could really do, if they really had guts, is instead of endorsing an uncommitted selection, they would endorse Marianne Williamson. And if a candidate actually gets a good amount of traction, then that candidate might actually win the nomination. Versus if you do uncommitted, it's symbolic over anything else. So if you're a state rep, you could come back 6 months later to your state chair and say, hey, I only went for uncommitted. I didn't actually go for anybody running against Biden. So this uncommitted thing is sort of this cowardice way to have your cake and eat it too. Whereas I think if you really want to advocate and support a ceasefire, then you got to vote for Marianne Williamson or even Dean Phillips, who is still running. But why is Marianne Williamson? She got 3% of the vote. Uncommitted got 13.3% in the Michigan Democratic primary, and Joe Biden got about 81%. So uncommitted got about 101,000 votes. Marianne Williamson, her 3% got her about 23,000 votes. But Dean Phillips got 2.7% to about 20,000 votes. So Dean Phillips keeps spending more money than Marianne Williamson, and he was supposed to be the most viable alternative in the race to Joe Biden. He had the money behind him. He was a former congressperson. When everybody said, oh, Marianne Williamson didn't have enough tangible experience and didn't have enough experience in Congress to actually be an effective president, Dean Phillips was the answer to a lot of those questions. And I think he's been an effective campaigner. But for some reason, Marianne Williamson, each and every time, does better than Dean Phillips. In New Hampshire, that wasn't the case, but in the primaries after, whether it be Nevada or South Carolina or now Michigan, it's Dean Phillips in third place with Marianne Williamson in second place. So even though Dean Phillips usually outspends Marianne Williamson by about $400,000 to $500,000, Marianne Williamson is still getting more tangible support and still getting more votes, which shows that just comparing the two for her second place finish, that she would be the most viable alternative to Joe Biden. So I think it's smart that she's reigniting her campaign, especially after ceasefire gains traction. And even though Marianne Williamson was indicating she would resume her campaign before, now that she's an official candidate, she might be able to get some of that uncommitted support. I still think it was a cowardice move for the uncommitted people not to just say vote for Marianne Williamson. But at that point, in the Michigan primary, Marianne Williamson was not necessarily a candidate. She had dropped out, was making rumblings about coming back in, has now made the right decision to come back in, which I think is a smart move. But she might have missed an opportunity if she was actively running. She might have gotten that 15% that uncommitted got. But perhaps in the future, now there is somebody who has been consistently anti-genocide and consistently pro-ceasefire. So she's reignited her campaign. I think it's smart. It looks like she'll probably go past Super Tuesday and into Georgia. So that's good. I'll be around Georgia. So I'll certainly go and cover her. And as for the GOP primary, not good news for Nikki Haley. Donald Trump got 68%, 68.2%. Nikki Haley got about 27%. If you round up, I think her 26.6% of the vote. So she got 27%, which is not good. I think Nikki Haley was looking to get at least 35%. So she keeps doing worse and worse. She did reasonably well in the South Carolina primary. I still have to analyze this objectively, even though they threw me out. She did 10 points better than what the poll showed. People are expecting her to get 30% of the vote. She got 40, which is not bad. And you could say, well, 4 out of every 10 Republicans are against Trump and are specifically supportive of this one candidate. So Nikki Haley did well in South Carolina, and if she can, or well enough, I don't think she did well, but she did well enough to have an impetus to continue her campaign. But for her to only get 27 below 30%, only 27% of the vote in Michigan. Michigan is a state where you don't have to be registered with a party to vote, so she probably got a lot of Democratic support, crossover support from Democrats. For her to still continuously do that poor looks very bad for Super Tuesday. I think she actually did do decently well enough in South Carolina to continue fighting, but she had to at least get a respectable 35% in Michigan versus 30, because some of her supporters, they say, well, the polls are inaccurate because they keep miscounting Haley, undercounting Haley by about 10%. They did this in New Hampshire where they said Trump would win by 20, Trump only won by 11. They did this in South Carolina where the mainstream media said Trump would win by 30 and he's only won by 20. But in Michigan, the polls were accurate. So she used to say, well, the media isn't being correct about these polls and that's how we can close the gap. But she did pretty terribly, and she spent real money in Michigan when Trump did it. So Michigan might be the death knell where she raised a few eyebrows. And 40%, if you think if this is an open seat, 40% isn't actually that bad. But these results, I think, are certainly not good for her. So yeah, so Marianne Williamson is back. Super Tuesday is going to be the big competition. I think I am going out to Chicago to cover the Ideal Org opening. So if you guys want to support me, I do have a GoFundMe. I will be raising some money because I want to get a flight out there, and I'll be in Chicago regardless of whether or not I raise money. But if you want to show support, please do. That'll be awesome. But we're in South Carolina now. I'm staying at this RV kind of out in the country, so enjoying that. It's about 80 degrees, so it's kind of super warm. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the analysis, and stay tuned for more Scientology coverage as well. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.